When did you first realize that, hey, financial planning was something that you needed to do?
Well, interestingly, about 5 years or so ago, I listened to a BFM interview about financial planning, and made me realize that a plan and a coach, helped me go through a triathlon and improve my performance, and having an executive coach with a financial planner helped me do the same to achieve financial goals.
Fantastic. And how did you find Rajen? Rajen Devadesan, who's your financial planner.
Well, as you know, he was your guest on that BFM interview, and he was talking about it. So I immediately reached out to him. And
Yeah.
interestingly, the first thing Rajan said was, you should meet at least 3 other financial planners, and really make sure that the chemistry is right, and you're on the same wavelength, which I did, and ultimately went back to Rajan.
Okay. One difficulty, I guess, we're both entrepreneurs, and I think the one difficulty is that we're managing a business, which because we're entrepreneurs doesn't pay us very much, right?
Not at all.
Yeah. On the other hand, we need to make sure that our kids are okay, and we're providing for them. How do you balance this?
Sure. I think the advantage that I have is I started early, right? Back when both of us were in management consulting in the mid 1990s, and especially to take advantage of that 98, 99 market inflection point, right? Sort of kind of building it from a steady state basis. For me, it was very, very cookie cutter approach to just building it consistently, so that you now have a big buffer to do what you really want to do.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I actually, during 97, 98, I actually lost everything and had to build it with I think the 2008 crisis, I guess, so every crisis is liquidity, but you might have to wait for the next one. Now,
Yeah.
what has, going into, so 5 years ago, you met up with Rajan, what are the building blocks that you put in place so that, then, and I guess what are the building blocks of your financial plan?
Sure. I think, first of all, there was a very rigorous goal setting process, right? Like really defining explicitly what is it that you want to do out of life. And, we even went through, these are the 100 things I needed to do, write it down explicitly, how you did narrow it down to 20, narrowing it down to 10, and the top 3 goals, so that you kind of know what is it that you're aiming for, right? And then after that, for me, it's the accountability, right? Because if I'm going to see him every 2 months, I need to be able to show progress, right? Whether it is insurance, for example, right? That wasn't lined up properly. What are the things I needed to put in place, to creating some diversification across both geography and currency?
Okay. And how has that sort of plan? I mean, so Rajan played kind of like almost, as you said just now, a financial coach. You
Right.
had to see him every 2 months. You were accountable to him, and
That's
I
right.
guess over the course of the few years, you actually created a plan which kind of like required less adjustment as you went along. How
That's
has
right.
that plan coped during this latest crisis, this COVID pandemic, where stock markets was just swooning all around the world, right? So how did your
Yeah.
plan prepare?
So I think, first of all, from my point of view, because I was setting up to start Naluri, right, and it's been 3 years since we saw a salary, right? So I needed to have that cash cushion available, and to be able to, in a way, move things around to make that happen. Number one, and number two, honestly, I think it's having Rajan make the broader portfolio decisions, because I really needed to save my bandwidth to figure out what we do with the business, and not have to worry about how do you reallocate your portfolio. So just having him take me through that.
Okay, so you delegated that to him. You delegated that portfolio allocation and
Yeah.
that sort of thing to him.
He's always very clear that it's ultimately my decision. He would recommend, but from my point of view, I don't have the bandwidth to kind of try to figure out what the specific market movements are, and for me, the value is just, all right, this is the chunk of portfolio that I think suits that certain level of risk. How you are going to allocate it between India and China and Southeast Asia, you got to have that level of trust.
Okay, fantastic. And I guess, what is your advice for budding entrepreneurs like us? I mean, not budding anymore. I think we're a bit a bit gray here. But
Yeah.
what do you advise us to do, all entrepreneurs to do, as respects to their own personal financial plans?
Yeah, I think whatever plans you have for your business, the reality is, you're probably going to spend twice the amount of money and make half the amount of money that you think you're going to make, right? And so how do you really have a cash cushion and, in a way, some also alternative income streams so that you're not 100% dependent for your personal financial needs from the business?
Okay. Going forward, are you positive that your financial plans will withstand the current pandemic and all the negatives that are associated with it?
Well, as entrepreneurs, we're eternally optimistic. But for me, my ultimate goal is to still be productive at 100. And so you got to throw away all the traditional timelines that people talk about and think in decades rather than what's going to happen over the next 18 months. So I don't sweat what's going to happen in an 18, 24-month period, but rather, where am I going to be 20 years from now?
Yeah, and that applies to your financial plan as well.
Exactly.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Azran. Really, really appreciate that.
Thanks for having me.